Good morning, students. Can we start? When I put something about the class, at least one of you say okay or something. I was thinking whether you people will be coming for class or not, since there was no response at all. Okay, so any doubt you have in last class? So before going into the class, we'll just have a small discussion. Uh, like because of this uncertainty, we don't know how to progress. So every day we get new orders to follow. So like as per last week's like order from the government, we were asked to start the class face to face from March 1st. That means from March 1st, we were given orders to start the face-to-face class. But yesterday it was totally a different scenario. Like I don't know how far it will be keep extending. So just want to ask. So how do you feel? Like our plan was to have our exams online. Then we will have 2 weeks of practical reviews. That means before you are going for your clinical placement, we thought of having a 2 weeks of review about the skills and other thing. Then we will be sending you for the clinical placement 2. So what do you like? If you this is the plan till yesterday. I don't know how like it will be changing further, but so far this is the plan for us. So like how do you feel about the online exams, or if you want definitely want to have only face to face exam, so you just like have a discussion among your class, then class rep just give me a message, or like you just tell me like your opinion, another thing. Okay, so or else if you want to have an open discussion now also we can have. So do you want to discuss among all your classmates and let me know, or you want to discuss now? So these are the two things you need to discuss, whether you are going to have your online exam, then 2 weeks of review practicals of everything, then go for your clinical placement. No, review will be face to face. So that's what like as per last week's order, we were asked to start the face-to-face class by March 1st week. So, like as per previous week, we thought of having a review face-to-face in March 1st. That means March 1st means your exams will get over by 5th. Then from 8th till 19th or 18th, we will be having a review classes in our lab. Then we will be sending you to the clinical placement from 20th March. So that was the plan before, but I don't know. Still, like we have a meeting by 11 o'clock after our PM's speech. So we don't know how to proceed further. I'm just giving you the details. You can just have, you can discuss among yourself and you just tell me. Or else, like if you want, definitely you want to have a face-to-face OSCE, that also like we can have. But we don't know how far we will be able to have if the government still extends the CMCO, then it will be a problem for us. But if they do not extend, then this will be our plan. Okay, so we will go into the class now. So today we will be seeing about postnatal, our PT role in postnatal mothers. So first we will see about the assessment, then we will see about the demonstration of the postnatal exercises. Okay, so what is postnatal period? So immediately after the delivery or immediately after the third stage of labor, then the mother will enter into the postnatal period. So it is a period of time, maximum of 6 weeks to 8 weeks, where the mother's body will go back to its previous state or will return back to normal. So far the mother will be in a pregnancy state. So immediately the delivery of the third stage of labor, automatically all the physiological changes which happen for the past 10 months will just slowly revert. And this may take a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks for the mother to return back to their normal state. Okay, so during this time, so this 6 to 8 weeks is called as postnatal period, which is very, very vulnerable situation, because the mother will be very, like, she will not have the exact physical strength, or like she will not have the complete physical health of a normal woman. So she will feel as if she is bloated. She will be having like swollen abdomen, swollen feet, and she'll have a lot of deposits of fat in the arms, hips, buttocks, thighs, and there will be a lot of stretch marks, and the abdomen will be very loose, flabby, and if she is looking at herself in the mirror, she will feel as if like a different creature. Okay, she'll feel as if she is bloated all over the body. Okay, so especially if you see, she'll be having uncontrolled abdomen movement. So as a physio, like if you want to tell, so we can say that the abdomen will be very loose and it will be floppy. Whenever she walks also, the abdomen content will be keep moving here and there, because you can just imagine for nearly 36 to 40 weeks, the abdomen was fully packed by the fetus, and suddenly uh, some 5 to 10 kg of material has come out of the abdomen. So the abdomen will feel very floppy, and like the remaining abdomen content which was compressed so far, or which were tightly packed so far, will be like loosed, and it will be moving, just moving here and there. So whenever she is walking, the abdomen contents will move here and there. Okay, so she will not be able to have a controlled abdomen movement. Then other problems will be like edema, then bruising, painful perineum, then she might have stress incontinence, then insomnia, delusion, and euphoria. So these are the last three. So first three will be the physiological problem, Then because of the additional responsibilities and additional problems in her body, she might have insomnia, that is sleeplessness, and this sleeplessness and disappointments will lead to some psychological issues like euphoria and delusion. So disappointment means like sometimes like the mother might have looked for a male gender, she would have had a girl baby. So these kind of disappointments sometimes they but nowadays like even like they know what is the gender by fifth month itself, but still sometimes they may be looking for a very fair skin, like maybe rosy lips, like blue eyes. So like a lot of things they might have looked or they might have been expecting, but if they get a baby of different apart from their expectation, then they will have the disappointment. Sometimes the disappointment may be because of the some congenital problems in the baby, or because the baby is sick or something like that. So all these will lead to uh, severe psychological issues in the mother. So these are the rough. This is a rough summary of the postnatal period. So now during this situation only, as a PT, you will be entering to the mother's room. Okay, so you have to keep all these things in your mind whenever you are assessing a postnatal mother. So the first is like, so the routine postnatal care will be for up to 5 days. Sometimes like depend on the hospital and depend on the delivery type of delivery. So they might get discharged from 24 hours to maximum of 5 to 7 days. So depends on the problem. So depends on the type of delivery and depends on how the baby and mother are returning to normal. Okay, so this is about the antenatal, like postnatal care. So during this postnatal care, the mother will be undergoing certain checkups like blood pressure, assessment of the breast, abdomen, uterine involvement, status of the cervix. Then sometimes they may perform smear test, but most of the time the smear test will be done after 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Then they will be discussing about the contraception and other problems the women will be experiencing. So these are the things you have to look in the case sheet, or you have to discuss with the mother. Next. So next is our physiotherapy assessment. So you need to keep all the previous thing whichever I have told you in mind whenever you are going to do a assessment in a postnatal mother. So first will be our subjective assessment, where you will be getting all the demographic details. Then next will be the chief complaints. So chief complaints here will be the common problems the mother will be facing. So apart from this common problems, she might have some other issues also. Again, it depends on the type of delivery and the nature of pregnancy, labor. So for the common problems will be like loose or slaggy abdomen. So as I said, the abdomen will be very flobby, like it will be moving here and there. So she might feel as if some sac is there without properly tied up. Okay, so that will be the common problem. Then she might have incontinence. So incontinence is nothing but urinary leakage. She might have pain in the pelvis, back, thorax, because the pain will be there in the pelvis. If she has undergone a normal delivery, definitely she will be having painful perineum and painful pelvis. Then sometimes they may have back pain and thoracic pain because of the breast enlargement. So if they have undergone a cesarean section, then they will be having the surgical pain. Okay? Then they will be having swollen legs, feet and hands. They might have the edema. You have to look for it. Then they might have breast soreness, heaviness, and sometimes they may have cracked nipples, encroachment. If the baby is not feeding properly, then they might have this encroachment. And you have to keep in mind, sometimes the mother may delay in breastfeeding. That means the milk may not be secreted immediately after the delivery. Usually, the mother will be able to feed her baby after 3 to 6 hours of delivery. But sometimes, depending on the type of delivery, like in case if there is, if they have undergone a cesarean section, then the milk secretion might get delayed for maybe few hours to few days or few weeks also. Okay, then they might have some blocked duct. So if they don't have a proper milk secretion, then you have to check for their nipple shape, size, whether there is any cracks or any ingrowing means that sometimes the nipple will be inverted going inside, so you have to check for it. You have to check for any blocked ducts, then tenderness, whether the breast is feeling any hot or redness like that. So you have to look for all these details. Okay, so once again, hello. Yes. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, somebody has asked a question about the examination, so we will discuss later after this class session. So then, like other problems will be they will be tired, sometimes depressed, sometimes loss of libido. So all these will be there depend on the uh, disappointment and depends on the type of delivery, whether the baby is normal or the baby is in ICU or the baby has some congenital issues. All these things. So depending on the baby's condition, the mother will have additional problems. So you have to look for all these common issues the postnatal mother will be having. The next is regarding the history. So we don't need to go very in detail because already we have seen most of the part in antenatal. So we need to look for the present history regarding the onset of the problem. Onset of the problem will be definitely after pregnancy or after labor. And if it is after labor, it will be a sudden onset. Then personal history regarding smoking, drinking, and hobbies. So this is like just to give them advice. If they are smoking and drinking, definitely they need to stop this habits because it may affect the baby. Then next is regarding the diet. So diet, they might have this constipation. So to avoid the constipation, you have to ask them their food habits. So they have to increase the fiber intake and fruits and vegetables so that they can avoid this constipation. Then you have to ask about the anorectal function. What is the frequency of passing motion and motion? Whether they have constipation, whether they need to strain or how. So usually after the delivery, they need to have a they need to hold the anus so that they will be able to pass normal motion because it will be very painful. So if they strain, the pain might increase to multiple folds. Then next is medical history, whether they have any medical problem and whether they are taking any medication. So our main part is objective history. So here we have to look for G, P, A and L. So G is number of gestation, that is number of conception uh, or number of times they have conceived. P is number of time they have delivered. So you have to keep in mind this G and P need not to be the same number, but definitely it will be lesser than G. Okay, so P will never be greater than G. So P will be always lesser than G because number of time conceived, then P is number of time delivered. Then A is number of abortions and L is number of live birth. Okay, so when you add up this A and L, it will be equal to G. Is that clear? So you have to keep in mind. So this is your objective history. The next is you need to check for what type of delivery they had, whether it is normal vaginal delivery, whether they had any assisted vaginal delivery, or whether they had cesarean section. So in case of cesarean section, whether they had a planned cesarean or emergency cesarean. So planned cesarean means that they might have some complications during antenatal time, and because of that, the doctor might plan to undergo a cesarean section. So that is called as elective cesarean or planned cesarean. Then emergency cesarean, in case during the labor they might had some problem, and because of that the doctor might go for a cesarean section. That means they might have any complications during the labor and they had went for a cesarean section. So this is your emergency cesarean section. Then next you have to look whether in case if they have undergone a cesarean section, then whether they had a midline incision or phalangeal incision. So midline incision means like it will be from like in the midline of the abdomen from the below the zivis tunnel to the umbilicus or sometimes below the umbilicus. Then phalangeal incision means it will be in the lower part of the abdomen below the umbilicus. They might have a transverse insertion, so that is called the phalangeal insertion or transverse insertion. Okay. So in case if they have undergone a normal vaginal delivery, then you have to check how long they had the labor duration. So how long was the first stage of labor, how long was the second stage of labor, whether they had some problem during labor, whether they have any episiotomy tear, whether they have taken any epidurals or any other medications to reduce pain. So all these details you can get from the medical record. Okay, so the mother may not be knowing many of the details, so you get most of the details from the medical record. Then gynecological history. So gynecological history is like your menstrual history, that is whether it is regular or irregular, whether they had any hormonal problems, whether they had any PCOD problem, all those things. So that will be coming under the gynecological history. So next is like surgical history, whether they have undergone any cesarean section before or whether they have undergone any abdominal surgeries before, like that. So why you want to know that? Then only you will know how to give the exercises. So that's why you are checking for the surgical history. Then any previous management, it may be medical, surgical, physio, diet, acupressure and herbal remedies. So any medications or any other treatment they have undergone previously for the same problem. Okay. So the next, so additional all these things you will also check in your antenatal apart from the apart from the delivery history. So now additional is fetal history. So for the fetal history, like you have to check for the sex of the baby, color, height, weight. So height and weight you want to know, then only like you will know whether the baby is normal or under growth or underweight. Then whether the mother has started to feed the baby. So if she has started to feed the baby, then how many times she is feeding, how the baby is able to suck. So sometimes the baby might not have the oral reflex, so you need to check how the baby is able to suck and drink properly. Then head circumference, then the neonatal reflex, then activity, then if the baby is having any anatomical deformity or congenital deformity. So all these things, rather than asking the mother, you can also get from the neonatal medical record. Only apart from number of times feeding, you can get everything in the neonatal medical record. Then normally during labor, that means like immediately after the delivery of the baby, they will be looking for one Apgar scale, and this Apgar score will be written in the medical record. You have to check it because depending on the Apgar score only, they will be deciding whether the baby has to be in normal ward or ICU or in interventional like treatment. Okay, so depending on the Apgar score, you will be the doctors will be deciding whether the baby has to go for a routine normal care or intensive care or neonatal care, like that. So depending on this only, like the mother's psychology will be. So that's why you need to look for this particular score. So this score has 5 criteria. that is appearance of the baby, then regarding the pulse, reflex, activity, and respiratory effort. And they will be checking this Apgar score immediately after delivery, then 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 15 minutes, like that. So depending on that only, they will decide where to take the baby. Okay. So appearance will show you whether the baby is having a good blood supply. So if the baby is pale, that is fully blue, then that means the baby's blood circulation is not proper. And sometimes the baby might have extremities alone blue and the body will be pink. So that means partial circulation is present. Sometimes there is no cyanosis or no blueness, the whole body will be pink. So that means the baby had a good circulation. Okay, then regarding the pulse, pulse is heart rate. So whether absent, less than 100 or more than 100. So usually for a baby, the pulse rate should be more than 100. The next is regarding the reflex. So reflex is something you cannot go for immediate neonatal reflexes. So you can just check about the cry of the baby. If there is no response, then it is 0. If the cry is very feeble, then it is 1. If the cry is very loud, then it is 2. The next is activity, whether the baby is showing any activity, that is any movement in the upper limb and lower limb of the baby. So if there is no movement, then 0. If the baby is doing only flexion movement, or the baby is doing some extension also. Then next is regarding the respiratory rate. That means number of respiration. So it is 0 or very weak respiration, and very like the baby is crying very loud, means then the respiration is very good. Okay, so the reflex and the respiration will go hand in hand. Okay, so depending on this score, they will be adding it and they will be giving the score. So normally it is done at the first minute, fifth minute, and later every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. So in the first minute and fifth minutes itself, if the baby is having a good response or good score, then immediately they will take the baby to the normal ward. Okay, so they to be normal, the baby has to score more than 7. So if the baby is scoring more than 7, then that means the baby is normal. If the baby is scoring in between 4 to 6, then it is fairly low. So you have to give some neonatal care. Then only you can take the baby to the neonatal ward. Then if the baby is having less than 3, definitely the baby needs critical care. So maybe ventilator support or oxygen support or anything. So immediately they will be rushing the baby to the neonatal ICU so that they can give some ventilatory support. Okay, so depending, this is the Apgar score. So this, in case if the baby is less than 3, that means the baby will be critically very low. At that time, if you go and teach postnatal exercises to the mother, sometimes they may not be in a mood to do the movement. So you need to give them a lot of psychological support in case the mother is having this, the baby is in neonatal ICU. Okay, so 4 to 6, at least the psychology will be a little bit better, but still you need to give them good psychological counseling. If it is 7, then the baby will be along with the mother, so the mother will not have much of the problem. Okay, so coming to the objective examination, the first you have to check about the posture. So last time we had a detailed discussion about the posture. So you need to check the mother in sitting, standing, as well as in lying, both her posture, and check for abdominality. So definitely the mother might have rounded shoulders, that is kyphosis, increased kyphosis, and increased lordosis. So you need to check for that. What are the abnormal changes the mother is having? Okay, then look for muscle power, especially for the abdomen muscle power, then spinal extensors and pelvic floor muscle power. So abdominal muscle power and extensor muscle power you can check, but sometimes if they have undergone a cesarean section, you may not be able to check on the day 1 and day 2. So you need to wait for them to become little normal, then only you can go for this abdominal muscle power checking. Okay, so I'll just go through this, then I'll show you the videos how to check all these things. The next is called diastasis recti. So diastasis recti is nothing but because of the distended abdomen, the rectus femoris might split into two. That is because of the linea alba and linea nigra. So the linea alba is the thin shield which is holding both the rectus together, right and left rectus together. But because of the abdominal distension, this abdomen might get open up, and it will take some time to go back to normal. So this opening is called as diastasis recti. Again, depending on the size of the diastasis recti, you have to go for the postnatal exercises. So for all the patients who are having more diastasis recti, they cannot do the abdominal exercises. That's why you need to check for this diastasis rectus abdominis. Then check for incontinence. That way you will know when you are doing the pelvic floor muscle power checking. Then pain scale grading. Then in swelling, you need to check whether they have a normal pitting edema or non-pitting edema. How much it is affecting the vascularity. Sometimes the swelling will be very severe that it will be compressing the blood vessels and the vascularity is affected. So you have to check for it. And again, for swelling, you have the gradings. Pitting edema and non-pitting edema, you have the grading for it. According to the grade, you have to use it. Then roughly you can go for ROM checking. So you cannot check all the joints. So just a rough idea, you can just check whatever joints needed. Then you have to check for the muscle tightness or stiffness. Then check for the sensation. So again, sensation sometimes because of the compression of some vascular like vascularity, they might have some affected sensation. Sorry, because of the delivery, sometimes the nerve also might get compressed, and that also may lead to reduced sensation. So you have to check for this sensation. Next will be the problem list. Then our aims, goals. So the problem list, depending on the patient, you will get the problem list. Okay, so aims and goals is according to the problem list. That clear? So first we will see how to check MMT. Okay. So this video will tell you how to check your upper abdominal muscle power. Okay. And here they have shown the mother to be in the legs should be straight, but usually immediately after delivery you may not be able to do in this position. So you can modify the positions to crook lying. Okay, so you can perform this in crook lying position.
I'm going to stabilize down here at the feet with my forearm or my hand. Okay, I'll have the patient put their hand behind their head, and I'm going to ask them to do a sit-up, looking for them to be able to clear their scapulas off the table. Patient that can do that right there, go ahead and go on back down. That would be a grade of a 5. If they can't do that, you ask them to cross their arms in front of their chest and repeat the same maneuver. Okay, if they can do that and clear their scapulas off the table, that would be a 4. They don't have to come up that high, just as long as they clear their scapula off the table. And if they can't do that, they put their hands straight out in front of them with their palms down, and you have them come up till they clear their scapulas right to there. That would be considered a 3. If they can't do that, relax. Basically, what you're going to do is just have them try to do a sit-up, and you're going to see if their abdominal muscles are actually contracting. Go ahead. And I can feel their abdominal muscles contracting, so I would say that they're contracting. That's a 2, 1, or a 0. Kind of hard to differentiate what grade that is. Okay? Manual muscle testing for trunk flexion.
Okay, so is there any doubt? Anybody wants to have a repeat? Okay, I'll just repeat.
This is manual muscle testing for trunk flexion. I'm going to stabilize down here at the feet with my forearm or my hand. Okay, I'll have the patient put their hand behind their head, and I'm going to ask them to do a sit-up, looking for them to be able to clear their scapulas off the table. Patient that can do that right there, go ahead and come on back down. That would be a grade of a 5. If they can't do that, you ask them to cross their arms in front of their chest and repeat the same maneuver. Okay, if they can do that and clear their scapulas off the table, that would be a 4. They don't have to come up that high, just as long as they clear their scapula off the table. And if they can't do that, they put their hands straight out in front of them with their palms down, and you have them come up till they clear their scapulas right to there. That would be considered a 3. If they can't do that, relax. Basically, what you're going to do is just have them try to do a sit-up, and you're going to see if their abdominal muscles are actually contracting. Go ahead. And I can feel their abdominal muscles contracting, so I would say that they're contracting. That's a 2, 1, or a 0. Kind of hard to differentiate what grade that is. Okay, manual muscle testing for trunk flexion.
So the mother may not be able to do in this position, so you make her to lie down in crook lying, and the mother may not be able to do the complete getting up. So you can just see if she is able to bring up the scapula a little above the bed, then it is more than enough. Okay, then don't start in grading 5. You have to start with grading 3. Then if she is not able to perform, go to grading 2. If she is able to perform, go to grade 4. So this is for the upper abdominals. Then for the lower abdominals, so then like for rotation, 1 minute. First we will see about the rotation. Whether you were able to see the video, first video. Okay, just a minute. I'll try again.
I'm going to stabilize down here at the feet with my forearm or my hand. Okay, I'll have the patient put their hand behind their head, and I'm going to ask them to do a sit-up, looking for them to be able to clear their scapulas off the table. Patient that can do that right there, go ahead and come on back down. That would be a grade of a 5. If they can't do that, you ask them to cross their arms in front of their chest and repeat the same maneuver. Okay, if they can do that and clear their scapulas off the table, that would be a 4. They don't have to come up that high, just as long as they clear their scapula off the table. And if they can't do that, they put their hands straight out in front of them with their palms down, and you have them come up till they clear their scapulas right to there. That would be considered a 3. If they can't do that, relax. Basically, what you're going to do is just have them try to do a sit-up, and you're going to see if their abdominal muscles are actually contracting. Go ahead. And I can feel their abdominal muscles contracting, so I would say that they're contracting. That's a 2, 1, or a 0. Kind of hard to differentiate what grade that is. Okay? Manual muscle testing for trunk flexion. This is manual muscle testing for trunk.
Okay, so this is for rotation.
The first step will be hands behind the head, and basically what I'm looking for is for her to be able to do a sit-up with a rotation, clearing her scapula off the table. Okay, so go ahead and take your right arm to your left hip and come up off the table. Okay, back down. Come on up the other way. Okay, back down. If they can't do that, then they would put their hands in front of them like so, and you would ask them to repeat the same maneuver. Go ahead. I'll do a better job holding you next time. Go the other way. Okay, can clear up. If they can't do that, then they would put their palms down like so. Go ahead and do the same procedure. Okay, cleared. Okay, cleared. Okay, so that would be a 5, 4, and a 3 based on the positioning of their hands. If they can't do a grade 3, you could just ask them to stay in that position, go ahead and come on up off. And basically you're just feeling for if the abdominal muscles are contracting. Okay, relax. And that would be a 2, 1, or 0, depending on what type of contraction you get, or if you don't get a contraction. Manual muscle testing for trunk rotation. This is manual muscle testing for trunk extension.
This is for trunk extensors.
For grade 4 and 5, I'm going to stabilize down at the feet. I'm going to ask the patient to put their hands behind their head. And then I'm going to ask them to lift their torso up off the table. Okay? And a 5 would be that demonstration there. You can go back down, where they can bring it up and hold it and lock it. Okay? Go ahead and come on up. If they can't come up and they start to drift a little bit, that would be considered a 4. They can't quite hold it and lock it. Okay? If they can't do either one of those, then you would have them put their hands to their side with their palms down. Okay? You would stabilize again here at the pelvis or down at the legs. And then you would ask them to repeat the same thing. Just go ahead and come up off the table, and then you can see if they can come on up the table. That would be a 3 with their palm side if they can't do the one behind their head, hands behind their head. If they can't do that, you're going to keep them in this position, and you're going to stabilize either at the feet or at the pelvis, and just ask them to come up off the table. Okay, go ahead, come up. And then you're just really contracting, feeling for contraction of the musculature, and that's a 2, 1, or a 0 on the manual muscle testing for trunk extension.
Okay, so next is for lower abdominals.
So this is a 5, 4, 3, partial is a 2, contraction is a 1, nothing is a 0. She still has to clear both scapula in the crunch, but she has to be able to rotate this shoulder over to one side, almost to where the shoulder is at midline. Okay, and both scapula clear. So if a patient does this and they just rotate over, her left scapula is still on the table.
Sorry.
Okay. You okay?
Yeah, I just cleaned your laundry basket besides that.
So the left scapula is still on the table, so she's rotating, but she's not using her obliques because she's not rotating, flexing. So a patient, if you try to have them do this and they go way over, you go, oh yeah, they can do really good rotation, but they're not coming up to, that's your trunk rotators, right? Remember talking about the whatever group, the multipodi, the rotatories, those are your rotators, different muscle group. We're trying to test obliques. So come up. Now we know she can't clear her scapula, right? So we're going to say she can't do that. We tried this one. She can't do that. We're going to try this one. Okay? Come up. Try to come up. Good. And then rotate over to your left. Okay. Do you guys think she's a 3? It's a good solid? Yeah. That's not too bad. We all are probably a 3. Okay. So that would be your obliques test for right external, left internal. So you're actually testing both sides when you rotate to the left, but one external and one internal. Let's go to your right side. Come up, 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 and nope, no. Now she substituted. Do you see what happened there? That last part was a substitution of hip flexors. So we want to make sure she rounds, round up, good. That's what we need to see. Cleared, cleared. I'm feeling that she cleared her scapula. I don't eye it, I feel. And make sure that inferior angle is off the table. Okay? That would be her left external, right internal. And so she's a 3. Okay. The lower abdominal test. Now we tested rectus abdominis, internal and external obliques. This test, trunk rotation goniometry, you don't want to get on your competency. This is the muscle test you don't want to get on your competency because this one's very specific. Lower abdominals is your transverse abdominis primarily and your obliques. So they're going to be synergists. They're going to help pull that pelvis back. So the first part of the test is to put your hand, see my hand under here? Okay, I'm going to slide it back. It goes right under like L4, 5S1, right in the small of the back, people call that, or right where the back kind of arches. And first you have to see if she can do a strong posterior pelvic tilt. Remember, the transverse abdominis does the posterior pelvic tilting, right? So I want you to try to smash my hand. What's happening? Patients will do this. They will pull their air in. They'll like bear down. It's like a Valsalva. You guys learned about the Valsalva maneuver? Where you kind of push your air in to get compression in the abdomen. Try to like go. It's that maneuver. It's a Valsalva maneuver. Okay. Patients will try to get that pressure by doing it with their lungs. Okay, so you have to make sure they're breathing. Usually you can just like watch their face, breathe. So what I'm going to do is just try to tilt your pelvis back from here. Don't do anything with your lungs. Don't try to hold your breath. Don't try to lift your body up. The motion comes from here going backwards. Okay, so you're going to use these muscles right here. Push down on my hand. Push down. Taylor cannot do this. So she is actually kind of on the lower end of the spectrum because this is like a 2.
Is it okay now?
To be able to posterior pelvic tilt without the leg movement, which is the next part of the test. So I need someone stronger so I can show you the test. Sorry. You either got lucky or not. I know. Who's got decent abs?
Yeah, Melissa does. She does P90 every morning.
Get up here, girl.
I really don't. Yes, she does.
We're going to find out. Okay. So you're going to lay flat. All right. Now, my hand is under here, okay? So I'm just sliding it under the small of the back. Try to smash my hand. Perfect. She's totally smashing my hand, okay? All right. So that is, let's see here, pelvic tilt is a 2. If she can pelvic tilt, that's a 2. But the pelvic tilt has to happen in the starting position. So if you've ever done any lower abdominal training, then you know that you involve the legs a lot of times, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to bring the legs passively up to 90. So notice, just relax. I'm going to explain to her what I'm going to do. So I'm going to bring your legs up, okay, and I want you to just relax. I'm just going to bring them up here. Let me know if you have any pain, okay, and then I'll explain what we're going to do when we get there. I've already taught her or explained to her how to smash my hand, right? Okay, so now I'm just going to bring your legs up to 90. Now some patients have tight hamstrings, so they're not going to be able to go that far. You might have to allow them to bend a little, okay? But you want to go as straight as you can to 90 at the hips. All right, now I'll slide my hand over here again. This is the only way that I can monitor pelvic tilting. Okay, here, hold on. Let me put my hand over there first. Okay, we're going to bring her up to 90. Now, smash my hand, tighten those same muscles. Perfect. Now, we're just going to lower the legs slowly down.
Okay, actually, like for the lower abdominals, you need to make the person to be in supine lying. Then you have to lift the leg to 90 degree. So when you are lifting the leg to 90 degree, the pelvis will go to posterior tilt. So if you keep your keep your hands at the lower back, you will not feel any gap. The pelvis will be totally tilted posteriorly. So in this position, like you have to just hold, or you have to keep your hand at the pelvis, and you have to drop the legs slowly. At one point, the pelvis will tilt anteriorly. That means from posterior tilt, the pelvis will slowly move to neutral. Okay, so you have to stop at that particular point. Is that clear? So from 90 degree, then slowly extend the leg. So when you're extending, at some point, the pelvis will be tilted to neutral. From posterior tilt, it will come back to neutral. So you just stop at that point and measure the angle of, like from the bed, how much is the leg elevated. So measure that leg elevation angle. According to the leg elevation angle, you have to grade the lower abdomen. So if the tilt is reduced in between 90 to 75, then it is grade 2. Okay. Then if it is in between, I'll give you the readings. Okay. So in between from 45 to 60, then it is 3 plus. Then from lesser than that, it is 3 minus. Then if it is like 0 to 15, then it is 4 plus. Then if it is lesser than 15, then it is 5. So you have a range of reading. So according to the reading, you have to decide the grading. Is that clear? Okay, so you just watch this. Otherwise, I'll send you in WhatsApp. You can watch the video a little later.
Down, and I want you to keep smashing my hand. Okay? Keep going down. Just let your legs come down. I'm actually lowering them, but she's helping because I'm not doing most of that work. Push down. Push, push, push. Ooh, can you push? Smash my hand. Smash. Okay, good. Keep going. Down. Down, down. Smash my hand. Smash. Okay. All right, she's done. Okay. So, here's where she could not smash my hand anymore. This angle is what you need to know to give her a grade. Okay? So, this is 0. What do you think this is? Can you give me a guesstimate? 45? Okay. Now, once I decide that, and if I need to get my goniometer out, I can. You can keep the hips at that angle. Let your knees bend. And just put the feet down and get your goniometer out if you want. Did I change the angle here? No. So I can still do that. And I can do that at any point. Okay, if she went all the way down to here, and I wanted to measure, let your legs relax, and just put her there. You see what I'm saying? But when you get better at this test, you can kind of eye it. So I would say, you know, she was here, and I go, okay, she's like 45 to 60, somewhere in there. Okay, so on your test, if you look at this lovely chart that I've given you, a 5 is if she can go all the way down to just hovering above the table or to 0 without losing that posterior pelvic tilt. So if you've ever done lower ab work, I know, we're running over, I'm sorry. Everyone's looking looking at the clock and then glaring at me. But in like in my yoga classes, we'll do a leg lowering, and the whole point is to keep your pelvis in close to your toe, right? Okay. So she was at 45 to 60, so she didn't quite make it to a 5. A 4 plus is 15 to 29. A 4 is 30 to 44, and a 4 minus is 45 to 59. So I'd say she was in that 40 to 59 range, so she's a 4 minus. Taylor was 2 over 5. Taylor, got some work to do. We all have work to do, right? Nobody wanted to, I got 5 over 5 X, right? Okay, last.
So simple manual muscle tests you could do.
Okay. So this is about abdominal muscle testing. Then we will see how to do diastasis recti assessing. So diastasis rectus is nothing but the rectus muscle will separate because of the distending abdomen. Okay, so no, it is normal to have for almost all the ladies. Like all the ladies means like after their delivery, most of the ladies will be having this diastasis recti, and slowly this diastasis recti will go back to normal depending on its grading.
Diastasis recti is a split between the left and right side of the abdominal wall. This occurs in 100% of women at 35 weeks pregnant. While most of them resolve on their own, some of them do need to be addressed. Diastasis recti is really easy to assess on yourself. I did it on myself after my last child, and I did have a split. I was able to correct it with a few simple exercises. I'll show you how to check your own and a few safe exercises that you can start. Find your belly button, and then you're going to palpate up the midline or the center of your abdominals. Push in gently, and you're going to curl your shoulders up. This will cause a contraction of these abdominals and enable you to feel a split. You're going to palpate up along towards your rib cage and then down below. If you do feel a split, you can turn your fingers horizontally to see how far across it is. 2 centimeters or greater is considered significant and something that you should have checked out. If you do happen to feel a split, you're going to put your fingers on either side of the split. Think of your abdominal muscles pulling apart this way, and your fingers are going to push them back together. So kind of get in there and push them together, and then you're going to do a little abdominal contraction. This will engage those muscles. I also recommend doing a Kegel contraction prior to that. That recruits your pelvic floor muscles as well. So Kegel contraction, push the muscle fibers away, let your knees fall out. Then try to use the same Kegel contraction and core to pull your knees back together. You should feel it working down through here. Another safe exercise to do is, again, approximating the 2 sides of your abdominals, Kegel contraction, tight core, and slowly straighten one leg out. Hold for 5 seconds if you can, and come back in. Do the same thing on the other side. The next exercise that you can do is, again, approximate tight core Kegel contraction, and this time just bringing a knee up and coming back down, and again on the other side. Same count, 10 times, take a break, and then 10 times. If these feel good, you can do the same thing again, same setup, and bridge up off the table and come back down. If you're unsure whether you do have a split, If you're having pain or difficulties with any of these exercises, feel free to come see me in the free.
Okay, so whenever like there is diastasis recti, you need to check what is the centimeters, and according to the what is the what is the size of the split, and according to that you will be having the, you have to go for the treatment. Is that clear? So normally like this is the, sorry, this is the interpretation. So if it is like, it is mild when you have a split of 1 to 2 fingers, then it is moderate to 3 to 4 fingers, and above that, it is above more than 4 fingers, then it is severe. So when you have severe diastasis recti, then you need to go for abdominal binders, because mere bracing exercise will not help you much. So you have to go for abdominal binders. So the how to measure for abdominal binders is, you need to measure around the umbilicus. So measure around the umbilicus and see what is the difference. So what is the size? Then in case if it is 32 inches, then you have to add 2 more and get 34 inches abdominal binder. Okay, so measure around the umbilicus. Then if it is 32 or if it is 34, then you have to add 2 more and get the size. So that will be the measurement for abdominal binders. Is that clear? Then for the mild and moderate exercise, moderate, then we can go for the bracing abdominal exercises, which I will be teaching you later. So far we have seen how to test this muscle power. This posture already we know, diastasis recti now we have seen. Incontinence, you have to check for the pelvic floor muscle power, or you have many testing for incontinence, which we will be seeing in the next class when we are seeing urinary dysfunction. Okay, so swelling, I'll send you the grading. So you have to check, you have to compress and see whether you have pitting edema or non-pitting edema. If it is non-pitting edema, you won't have any compression, or you won't feel any pitting there. So if it is pitting edema, depending on how much time the pitting is staying, you have the grading and you can grade accordingly. Okay, so after that, go for the problem list, then prepare your aims and goals. So overall, a few of problems, these are the common problems the mother will be having. There is diastasis recti, inability to voluntarily contract the pelvic floor muscle. That means they might find difficult to contract the pelvic floor muscle, especially during normal delivery, because of the pain and because of the episiotomy tear, because of swelling and so on. Then they might have perineal pain or discomfort. Then they might have symphysis pubis pain. Sometimes this may be a referred pain. Then back pain or discomfort. So the management for pain will be including, you need to give them a good support, because the abdomen will be very flabby and it will be moving here and there. And because of that only, they will not be they will not be control their abdomen. So you have to hold the abdomen, you have to give a good support to the abdomen and make them to walk. So this support can be just using the hand, bracing the abdomen in case if they need very mild. If they need a good support, then you can go for abdominal binder. So that will be better. Then teach them good positioning techniques. So if they have pain over the perineum, then they can sit over the donut pillow. So this will help them to reduce the pain and swelling. You can also give them TENS wherever they have pain. You can also use pulsed electromagnetic energy. That is, it's a kind of a short wave. So you can use that. Then you can use like cushions. Then you have to teach them how to feed, because mainly the problem, the pain will be increasing whenever they are feeding. So you can teach them good feeding positions. Okay, so our role as a PT is, first thing is you need to find a good position to start the exercises. So whether some patients might feel comfortable in lying position, some might feel comfortable in sitting position. So if they're able to sit over a gymnastic ball and do the exercise, it will be very good, because when they sit over the gymnasium ball, automatically the abdomen will have a co-contraction and the muscle power will increase. So you, according to the patient, you can go for whatever position they want, lying, sitting and standing. Then next is like we need to teach them good pelvic floor contraction. Then teach them how to support the perineum and void, because in the first few days the pain will be very severe. They might have difficulty with voiding and they might feel difficulty with passing tools. So this, for this too, you have to teach them how to support using the hand. So these are, apart from the exercises, these are our roles. Okay. Then you have to teach them. So before going into the day-wise treatment protocol, so generally you have to give them awareness regarding the position of exercises. That is, either they can do the exercises in lying, sitting or standing. Then teach them about the pelvic floor. Then teach them about the support of the hand. Okay, then. So now onwards, it depends when you are meeting the patient. So meeting the mother. If you are meeting the mother on the day 1, then you can go for day-wise protocol. Again, here it depends on which type of setup you are working in. If you are working in a women's health centered clinic, then immediately after the delivery of the delivery, they will be referring the mother to the physiotherapist. So you can just follow the day-wise protocol. Sometimes they don't refer you immediately if the mother has some problem. Maybe on the day of discharge, they will be referring to you. So it depends on when you are getting the reference. According to that, you can decide whether you want to go for day-wise treatment protocol or you will be teaching all the exercises on one day. So if you're going with day-wise protocol, then for normal delivery, you can follow this. The first is you can teach them good abdominal breathing exercise, teach them ankle toe movement and hand exercises. So ankle toe movement and hand exercises will help you to reduce the swelling. Okay, so that one you have to teach. Then teach them pelvic tilting exercises. So this can be taught in lying, sitting or standing depending on the mother. Sometimes you can also teach them in quadriprone position. Okay, so this exercises already we have seen in the antenatal classes. The next is isometric abdominal exercises. So you need to make the person to be lying down in crook lying, then contract the abdomen muscle isometrically. So whenever they are contracting the isometric abdominal muscle isometrically, do not hold their breath. You need to do as a normal contraction. Okay, so do not hold their breath while doing isometric abdominal exercises. Then next is isometric back exercises. So you can make them to be lying in crook lying and have the hand down to the lower back, then just give a push over the hand. Or you can also place the towel and ask them to push over the hand. So this one you can also make them to do in sitting and standing near the wall. The next is pelvic floor muscle exercises. So this one in lying, like you ask the person to squeeze the vagina as well as anus as if they are stopping the urine and fecus. This will give a feeling as if they are squeezing as well as pulling up the abdomen. Is that clear? So that is your pelvic floor muscle exercises. So we will learn more about this pelvic floor muscle exercises when we are learning the urinary dysfunction chapter. Okay, so mainly all the exercises will be overlapping. So once I complete all the topic, then you will get a complete idea about all the exercises. Okay, so next is back care. So back care, you need to teach them the ergonomic advices. So how to sit, how to stand, how to bend down for nappy changing, all these things. So that will come under the back care. So I'll give you the brief, like already we have seen how to give back care in the antenatal classes. Okay, so you can just go through the slides. If you have any doubts, then we can have a discussion. Then next is you need to teach them the feeding position nappy changing position and baby bathing, all those things. So here, like when you talk about back care, you need to talk along with the baby care, because mainly the mother will be doing nappy changing, baby bathing and all these things. So you have to teach along with this so that they get a good idea and they use it when doing. If you are simply teaching back care, then they will not be able to incorporate with their daily activities. Okay, so you have to teach along with the activities. So this is about the ergonomic principles. So while sitting, they have to sit completely support. The thigh should be completely supported in the chair, and they should keep the foot flat on the floor. Okay, so they should not hang the leg and sit. Then the weight has to be distributed over both the buttocks equally, because if they are sitting on one side, then they might have SA joint problem later. And they might feel difficult to sit like this because of the pain in the perineum. So you can give them a cushion or donut pillow so that it is easy for them to sit over it. So this is for sitting. Then standing also, they have to keep the feet slightly apart and stand on both legs equally so that they don't stand on single leg. Okay, then, so lying down, you can teach them good lying down position in supine lying, side lying. So they may not be able to go for prone lying. So teach them supine lying and side lying. Whenever you are teaching supine lying, you have to give a pillow under the knee. Okay, so you need to be careful on that. Then when they are kneeling, ask them to avoid isometric trunk flexion and rotation. Okay, so just make them to kneel down straight, but most of the time we may not be using this kneeling down, but anyways I'll show you the picture of this kneeling down. So how to next is regarding the feeding. So before going into the feeding position, you have to teach them the feeding position might sometimes hinder the baby's feeding, because if you are not positioning her properly, then she might have pain and other things, so she may not be able to concentrate on feeding the baby, and this feeding the baby will take long time. So if she is not following a proper position, later on she will end up in severe back pain and sometimes isometric, sometimes disc prolapse. There is chance for disc prolapse also. So you need to be, you need to advise her clearly about the positioning. Okay, so whenever she is lying down, the breast has to, like inside lying, the breast has to be supported properly. Okay, so this is very, very important. Then you need to teach the mother how to make the baby to lie down on her lap. So when she is making the baby to lie down on the lap, she has to draw the baby's mouth against the heart, like a baby's mouth against the nipple, and the nipple should be touching the heart palate, and the tongue should be down to the nipple so that they are able to suck properly. Okay, so with good relaxation, the mother has to feed the baby, otherwise she may not have a complete letting down, because letting down is like the milk has to come down. So this may be affected in case if the mother is not relaxed. So if the mother is not relaxed, then the milk secretion might be reduced. So you ask her to do deep breathing and ask her to be more relaxed. Then these are some of the positions. So you need to be very careful. So if she is going in long sitting position, especially this they will be doing when they are in first day of delivery. So you give them a good support for the back. They should not have a slouched back. They should have a good support on the back. If they are in long sitting, give them a pillow under the knee. Then give them a pillow over the lap and ask them to bring the baby closer to the chest. The mother should not bend down, okay, to reach the baby. The baby has to be lifted up to the nipple level. So if she is in sitting, give her a good footstool support. Then keep a pillow so that the baby is lifted up properly against the breast, and give a good back support. So normally we have four positions. So one is called cradle holding. This is the normal position where all the mother will be doing. So make her in sitting with good support. Give her a pillow under the baby so the baby is lifted up to the nipple level. The mother is not bending down to the baby. Then hold the baby's head with one hand. Like hold the baby's head and the shoulder with the forearm. Then the other hand will be holding the breast. If the mother is having a bulky breast, definitely she needs to hold the breast. Otherwise, the breast will be compressing the baby's face and nose, and the baby might not be able to breathe properly. So the mother has to hold the breast with the fingers. Okay, so this one you have to teach them. So this is called cradle hold, which normally they do. And this is cross cradle, where so if they are feeding the baby in the left side, then the left hand will be holding the baby's head and the shoulder. In cross cradle, when they are feeding the baby in the left shoulder, the right hand will be holding the baby. So this is called cross cradle hold. Okay. And this is called football hold, where this position is normally used for cesarean section, because in this position the suture site may get compressed. So to avoid that, they might go for this football hold, where they will be holding the baby in between the trunk and the arm. So the baby's body will be in between the trunk and the arm. Then the baby will be just positioned in side lying, and they will be feeding the baby. Or else if they feel very tired, then you can teach them side lying position also. So in side lying position also, you need to give a good pillow support so that the baby is lifted properly to the nipple level and the mother need not bend down. But in side lying, the mother has to go for a little bit quarter turn position, so that the nipple is drawn properly inside the baby's mouth. Okay, so I will send you the videos so you can have a look on the videos. Then other main task for the mother is nappy changing. So you can teach all these positions for her to change the nappy. So here if you see, this is the proper kneeling down position. So you have to teach her kneeling down position so that she can use the kneeling down position for nappy changing. And if she has a good proper high table, then she can do the nappy changing in standing. Then, or if the table is low, then she has to do in kneeling. She should not bend her back and do the nappy changing. Okay, so she should not bend her back. So if she is standing, the table should be taller. If she is kneeling, the table should be shorter. And this is also one more position, but this position need to be avoided in case if they have symphysis pubis dysfunction. So if they have symphysis pubis dysfunction, then they might have pain in abduction. And here, this will be so much painful if they do in this position. So you can teach them all these things. This nappy changing and breastfeeding is the main task for the mother. So at the initial stages, so you have to emphasize these two very well. Okay, so next is in day 2. Day 2, you will be, first day you will be teaching the isometric abdominal exercises. Then in the second day, you can teach bracing abdominal exercises. So when we saw the diastasis recti, we saw the exercise also. So if the mother is having diastasis recti, you have to follow that. That is called bracing abdominal exercises. That is, you have to hold the abdomen and close the diastasis recti. That is, you have to zip the splitting of the abdomen and do the abdominal exercises. So again, depends on the abdominal muscle power. If the muscle power is 2, then start the exercises in 2 and progress to 3, 4, 5. If the muscle power is 3, then start from 3, then progress to 3, 4, 5. Okay, so according to the muscle power, you have to do it. Then posture correction, already we have seen. So relaxation positions like in sitting, in standing, then in lying down, you have to teach her. It's a normal relaxation position, you can teach her. Then pelvic tilting, pelvic floor muscle exercises in sitting. Previously, we taught her in lying. Now, in the day 2, you can teach her in sitting and standing. Then from day 3 onwards, you can start to do your lower abdominal exercises. So lower abdominal exercises is you can start from a leg sliding. So especially you make the mother to be in crook lying and slide the leg downwards with abdominal retraction. Okay, so you have to start with leg sliding without doing abdominal retraction. Sorry, without raising the head, just do isometric contraction and slide the leg down, and do it one by one, one after the other. Okay, then slowly go for progress for leg sliding along with upper abdominal exercises. Then slowly you can go for bilateral leg sliding. So as the muscle power increases, you have to go to the next level. Then you have to teach them shoulder exercises, especially shoulder retraction exercises, shoulder rhomboids exercises that we have already seen in the antenatal. This one to reduce the thoracic pain, and since they will be feeding, the breast will be heavy, more heavy, and this may lead to rounded shoulders. So to avoid that and to strengthen the scapular muscles, you have to teach the shoulder exercises. Okay, then normally the normal delivery patients will be there in the hospital for 2 to 3 days. So you can plan the treatment accordingly. So on the day of discharge, you have to teach them the progressive abdominal exercises. Then you can teach them core stabilization exercises. So core stabilization exercises is nothing but hold the abdomen, that is do the isometric abdomen, and along with that maintain the pelvic tilt. Okay, so that is your core stabilization exercises. Again, I'll show you the videos. Then they can start the walking or aerobic exercises after 1.5 to 2 months. But usually they will be coming back for review after 1 month. At that time, ask them to come and meet you and learn the progressive exercises. So they can start for walking and other thing after 1.5 to 2 months. But again, it depends on the mother. Some mother may be able to walk after 2 weeks. Some mother may be able to walk little later. So all the exercises should be started gradually and improved gradually. Is that clear? So this is about the normal delivery patients. So even for the cesarean section also, you will be doing the same thing, but instead of 3 days, you will be teaching the exercises in 5 days. That means you will be splitting the exercises into 5 days, and you will be teaching the mother. And if the mother has peninsula incision, then you will be teaching the mother in 5 days. If the patient is midline incision, then you will be teaching the exercises in 7 days. That means it's nothing but you just extend the exercises and break the exercises into smaller group. But same exercises you are going to teach them. Okay. So briefly, we will just see what are the postnatal problems they might have. So home exercises, you ask them to go for a walk, ask them to do the pelvic floor exercises daily, then ask them to take good rest and relaxation. Okay. Then immediate post-operative problem will be, they will be having pain over the perineum. So for this, you can teach them good pelvic floor exercises. When you ask them to do good pelvic floor exercises, that will lead to increase in the blood circulation, and that will enhance the healing. So that's why you have to stress on the pelvic floor exercises. So more and more pelvic floor exercises, if they do, the pain will subside drastically. You can also give them pulse short wave diathermy. You can also go for other relaxation positions like donut pillows. Then you can also give them crushed ice massage. So wrap the eyes properly so that it doesn't soak the episiotomy tear and it doesn't cause infection. So cover the eyes properly, and you can give ice cube massage. Then you can give them warm bath and bidets. So normally this bidets will be done by nursing staffs. So bidets is nothing but it's you will have to fill a small tub with warm water then make the mother to sit in the warm water and do pelvic floor exercises. So this warmth will give them a good relaxation, and the warmth will give them increase the circulation, so that this will give them a this will enhance the healing. Okay, so the Bidets is nothing but fill the tub in a with a warm water and make them to sit inside the tub and do the exercises, do the pelvic floor exercises. So this will give them a good relaxation. So that one you can do for perineal pain. Other than that, you can also go for ultrasound, pulse electromagnetic energy over the perineal area. Okay, so when you are doing ultrasound, you have to use glove method. Okay, so you cannot give directly ultrasound, so you can go for glove, water glove method. Then other problem is like genitourinary dysfunction, that they might have incontinence, they might have constipation, they might have urinary retention. Because why urinary retention means they might feel very painful, so they will be holding the urine for a long time, and that might lead to urinary retention. So advise them not to hold the urine for a long time, advise them not to hold the feces for a long time to avoid constipation. So normally for the first few days they might have constipation, because they might not be able to eat full stomach, and they might have a lot of pains and other things. But gradually, once they go for a normal diet, the abdomen will they will be the constipation will reduce. And teach them good defecating technique. Defecating technique is you need to sit with hip flexion to 135 degree, not with 90 degree. So if they sit with hip flex to 135 degree, automatically they will not have this constipation. Then for incontinence, you have to teach them good pelvic floor exercises. Other problem is diastasis recti. So for that, you have to go for isometric abdominal exercises and bracing abdominal exercises. If the like grade is severe, go for abdominal binders. Okay, so this is the technique of the diastasis like abdominal exercises. Then pubic dysfunction pain. So do not ask them to go for unilateral weight stance. They have to give equal weight on both the legs. So if they have this clicking sound or severe pain whenever they are walking, ask them to ask them to okay, sorry. So ask them to do be in bed with abducted position. So during antenatal time, we have learned something called gapping technique for symphysis pubis. So we have learned some techniques. So you can ask them to wear a trochanteric belt and avoid abduction. So especially you have to avoid abduction whenever they are sitting in a car and turning. They have to sit in the side, then they have to twist the whole body instead of taking one leg after other. Okay, so this one you can advise them. So all these one we have learned in pregnancy relieving discomfort chapter. So you can make use of the same thing. So especially like after delivery, they will have a problem with their sexual life. So they might have pain. So immediately, definitely they will not be able to go for the sex. So after 1.5 to 2 months only, they will be able to go for the sex. And that also, it will be so much painful because of the episiotomy tear and because of dryness and a lot of things. So you have to advise the couples to go for a lot of relaxation, as well as a lot of so they have to go for different positions if they want, and they can also go for foreplay. Like they have to do a lot of foreplay, so the women gets good lubrication, and it will not be that much painful. But definitely it will be painful for the first or second time. Then slowly the pain will subside. Then the main problem here, like in the postnatal time, is they will be having a psychological issues, especially puerperal psychosis. So this will be severe in such a way that they might go for suicidal attempt, or they might kill their baby, or they might throw the baby, they may beat the baby. So a lot of things will be there. So this is because of the depression. This depression is because the mother may not be able to cope up with the normal, cope up with the increased responsibilities, and the mother may not be able to go with the additional responsibility. If the partner is not understanding, then she might feel she might have a lot of difficulties. So if whenever you see a mother, if you feel the mother is depressed, give her a good counseling, not only to her but to the partner, because the partners have to be more supportive to avoid this puerperal psychosis. Many of the time the mother might kill the baby, or the mother might undergo a suicide. So both will be very risky. So you have to give them a good psychological counseling. So advise the partner to be more supportive and more responsible. Okay, advise them, especially if the baby is having some congenital problem, then they might end up in this psychological depression. So sometimes if they feel the baby is very dark in nature, the baby is not cute or something like that, then also they will end up in the psychological depression. So advise them, every healthy baby is a boon, and every however the baby, they have to accept it. So give a good psychological advice. This is very, very important. It is more important rather than your abdominal exercises. Okay, so you have to give them a good psychological thing. So not only that, long term also they might have all these problems. So they have to do the exercises for a little longer time. So most of the time they have to do the exercises from day 1 till day 3 in case of normal delivery. If they have undergone a cesarean section, then they might wait till the suture is healing. But still you can start exercising from day 1. May not be abdominal exercises, but you can start with breathing exercises and other thing. Okay, so I'll give you the day-wise protocol. You can go through, then we can discuss all these with a case scenario in the next class. Is that clear? So this is about the cesarean section. So nothing nothing different for a cesarean section. Only thing is you will be delaying the exercises little bit. Okay, so otherwise everything is same for normal delivery and cesarean section. Is that clear? Okay, so I'll send you the case scenario, then we can have a discussion in the next class. So any doubt? If you don't have doubt, then we can end up the class. Okay, then class rep, you just message me who were absent today. Okay, so thank you.